Welcome to NTD News. I'm Stephanie Cox. The Queen has approved a request from Prime Minister Boris Johnson to suspend Parliament weeks before the Brexit deadline. Jane Werrell reports in London.
Well, shutting down Parliament limits the time for MPs to vote and debate Brexit, cutting down time to pass any legislation to block a no deal. There are plenty of dramatic words from Boris Johnson's opponents today. Here's what some of them had to say.
This is a constitutional outrage.
Shutting down Parliament in order to force through a no-deal Brexit, which will do untold and lasting damage to the country against the wishes of MPs, is not democracy, it's dictatorship.
What the Prime Minister is doing is a sort of smash and grab on our democracy in order to force through a no-deal exit from the European Union.
But US President Donald Trump supported Johnson, saying it would be very hard for Jeremy Corbyn, the leader of Britain's Labour Party, to seek a no-confidence vote against new Prime Minister Boris Johnson. And Johnson says what his opponents are saying is untrue.
There will be ample time on both sides of that crucial October the 17th summit, ample time in Parliament for MPs to debate the EU, to debate Brexit and all the other issues. Ample time.
He says he wants to set out his legislative domestic agenda with a Queen's speech on October the 14th. Parliament was last suspended or prorogued in May 2017 before a general election on June the 8th. Most laws passing through the Parliament are dropped at this time. It's not just MPs who are angry, protesters outside Parliament were unhappy too. The Queen acts on the advice of the Prime Minister and rubber stamps decisions as a formality, so her approval of Johnson's decision is a normal procedure. She stays out of politics. MPs will be back on September the 3rd before going into recess again. But if MPs pass a vote of no confidence before September the 10th, there could be a general election. A Conservative win may not be on the cards. Jane Werrell, NTD News.
And nationwide protests have been planned as the Queen accepts Boris Johnson's request to suspend Parliament. A petition against suspending Parliament has also racked up more than 500,000 signatures, with thousands of names being added by the minute. The series of demonstrations up and down the UK starting from today until Saturday are using the hashtag #StopTheCoup's. Dorian strengthening into hurricane status as it heads toward the eastern coast of Puerto Rico. It's expected to keep getting stronger.
Hurricane Dorian ripped through St. John of the U.S. Virgin Islands during the day on Wednesday. For eastern Puerto Rico, heavy rain and strong winds should arrive by late afternoon and continue into the evening, with the worst conditions on its east coast. Puerto Rico Governor Wanda Vazquez urged residents who are living in flood-prone areas to move into shelters. A dry law order has been instated for all of Puerto Rico, Vazquez announced Wednesday afternoon. Public schools and government offices will remain closed through at least Thursday. Local residents are making last-minute preparations. President Trump sent a tweet saying, quote, "We are tracking closely Tropical Storm Dorian as it heads, as usual, to Puerto Rico. FEMA and all others are ready and will do a great job," unquote. Trump has approved an emergency declaration for Puerto Rico ahead of Dorian's arrival. By the time Dorian hits Florida late on Sunday or Monday, it could be a major hurricane, according to the Miami-based National Hurricane Center. 2 years ago, Hurricane Maria devastated the island. NTD News.
A top U.S. general said today it's too early to consider a withdrawal of U.S. counterterrorism forces in Afghanistan. His remarks come at a time when U.S. and Taliban forces appear close to an agreement that would end the 18-year war.
Marine General Joseph Dunford, chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, shared his perspective on the situation with reporters at the Pentagon.
So I think it's premature. I'm not using the withdrawal word right now. I'm using, we're going to make sure that Afghanistan is not a sanctuary, and we're going to try to have an effort to bring peace and stability to Afghanistan.
He added that any U.S. withdrawal would ultimately be dependent on any outcome from their talks. U.S. Secretary of Defense Mark Esper echoed a similar sentiment, saying the U.S. wants to involve Iran diplomatically, but he wouldn't say the situation has stabilized.
I'm not sure I'm ready to call the crisis over yet, but so far so good, and we hope the trend lines continue that way, and we hope that the parties, that the Iranians would agree to meet and talk and help us resolve these issues.
The Taliban said on Wednesday it was close to an agreement with U.S. officials of a new deal. one that would see U.S. forces withdraw from Afghanistan in exchange for a Taliban promise that the country would not become a haven for international militants. Negotiations have been held in Qatar since late last year over how to end the 18-year war in Afghanistan. The 9th round of talks began last week.
A U.S. Navy destroyer sailing near islands in disputed waters in the South China Sea. While it's likely to anger Beijing, the U.S. says it was done to preserve access to waterways governed by international law.
A spokeswoman for the U.S. Navy's Japan-based 7th Fleet, Commander Ryan Momsen, said the U.S. Navy vessel Wayne E. Mayer carried out the operation. She said the ship, an Arleigh Burke-class guided missile destroyer, traveled within 14 miles of Fiery Cross and Mischief Reefs. Momsen added that the operation was conducted to challenge excessive maritime claims and to preserve access to the waterways as governed by international law. The busy waterway is one of a growing number of flashpoints in the U.S.-Chinese relationship, which include an escalating trade war, American sanctions on China's military, and U.S. relations with Taiwan. A senior Trump administration official said on Wednesday, in a visit to Iceland next week, Vice President Mike Pence will also participate in talks about China and Russia's incursions into the Arctic Circle.
Republican Senator from Georgia, Johnny Isaacson, announced he's retiring at the end of this year due to his struggle with Parkinson's and other health issues. Isakson was first elected to the Senate in 2004 and before that served in the House starting in 1999. The 74-year-old released a statement today saying his health challenges are taking their toll on his family and staff. His Parkinson's disease is progressing and he's had to have a growth removed from his kidney. He's also recovering from a fall he took in July. Georgia Governor Brian Kemp will appoint a replacement until a special election next year. Isakson's replacement means Georgia will have 2 Senate seats up for grabs in the 2020 election. And 2 U.S. senators are calling for a federal investigation into what they call a virtually unchallenged ticket company. NTD's Miguel Moreno has more on this.
Ticketmaster dominated the ticketing market before its merger with Live Nation, a contra-promoter. And after the two giants formed Live Nation Entertainment in 2010, Ticketmaster not only continues to dominate the market, 2 senators are saying that the lack of competition is hurting customers. The letter was signed and sent to the Department of Justice, or DOJ, by Senator Richard Blumenthal of Connecticut and Amy Klobuchar of Minnesota. They're calling for a federal investigation into Live Nation so as to determine whether the company has met the requirements it was given by the DOJ. Ticketmaster, for one, was to not withhold concerts promoted by Live Nation that use competitive ticketing platforms. The senators, however, cited reports alleging this has happened. The Governmental Accountability Office reported that Ticketmaster held 80% of market share in 2008, and as of 2017, it still led the market. Blumenthal and Klobuchar also cited the office, saying the ticket fees were found to be more than 25% their cost in 2018. With hundreds of millions of tickets being sold every year, they're hoping that the DOJ responds promptly. Miguel Moreno, NTD News.
New York Senator Kirsten Gillibrand is ending her run for president. The Democrat failed to break out from the field of over 20 Democratic candidates. In 3 recent polls, she came in at 0% and 1% against her peers. She said today it's important to know when it's not your time. She says she will redirect her energies into taking back the Senate for Democrats in 2020. And Hong Kong's financial district, the scene of a local rally today, protesting airline Cathay Pacific staff dismissals. NTD reporter Jeremy Sandberg was on location to speak with organizers of the event.
The protest started at 4 p.m. local time on Wednesday, with speakers condemning Cathay firings and the perceived atmosphere of white terror, a popular Hong Kong phrase used to describe anonymous acts that create a climate of fear. China's communist regime demanded Cathay suspend staff involved in or who support the protests in Hong Kong.
Free Hong Kong!
Airline Cathay Dragon fired the chair of its flight attendant union, Rebecca Tsai, after she allegedly showed support for Hong Kong protesters on her personal Facebook account.
We didn't do anything wrong. You should stand up to defend your freedom of speech and defend yourself, and also for everyone. If you think you can't do it on your own, I said, don't worry, we are together, because we know that it is the future of Hong Kong.
Cathay CEO Rupert Hogg also resigned recently as a result of Cathay's policy.
It is outrageous that when the Chinese airport authority or airline authority put pressure on Cathay Pacific, and then Cathay Pacific start to sack people, dismiss people, not because anything wrong with their work, but it's all about after work, especially their freedom of speech.
Ryan Lowe, a former employee of Hong Kong Airlines, was also fired for posts he made on Facebook.
Yes, because they are limiting our freedom of speech.
According to the Hong Kong Confederation of Trade Unions, at least 20 pilots and cabin crew have been fired. Protests escalated in mid-June over a now suspended extradition bill that would have allowed people to be sent to mainland China for trial in Communist Party-controlled courts. The protests have since expanded to include calls for an independent inquiry into police use of force and mounting demand for greater democracy. Following the rally, a parade began to deliver the three demands of the trade union: for Cathay to rehire workers fired over the protests, protect workers' freedom of speech, and stop the white terror among workers. The parade ended at Pacific Place in order to hand-deliver messages to Swire, the owner of Cathay Pacific. Citizens are seeking to protect workers' rights and their freedom of speech. Jeremy Sandberg, NTD News, Hong Kong.
The US-China trade war continues, and some of China's neighbors are seeing the benefits. At the same time, another trade agreement in the region looks set to help Trump deal with China.
Who benefit from US-China trade war? We do. Taiwan does benefit a little bit, especially compared to Korea.
South Korea and Taiwan are both important trading partners of mainland China, but during the current US-China trade war, Taiwan outperformed South Korea in dealing with the situation. Compared with South Korea, whether it's about exports to China or to the United States, Taiwan's trade surplus is gradually increasing and catching up with South Korea. Some experts say the tariff war has caused many US purchase orders to shift from mainland China to Taiwan, which greatly benefits Taiwanese business. Japan is also affected by the US-China trade war. Many Japanese companies have started moving their businesses out of China. At the G7 summit last weekend, President Trump announced that the US and Japan will sign a trade agreement in September. Experts say if the agreement is made, it will ease trade disputes between the two nations and help them keep close relations. It will also place President Trump in a better position for trade negotiations with China.
If the United States does reach a trade deal with Japan, that's certainly a positive development for American farmers, and it would be a political victory for Trump as well.
Reporting by Kitty Wong, NTD News.
U.S. wholesale store Costco was reportedly forced to close its first store in China early due to overcrowding and traffic jams on Tuesday.
With low prices and a lenient return policy, Costco drew crowds of aggressive shoppers to the Shanghai store. The crush forced the wholesale store to shut its doors after 1 p.m., 8 hours earlier than scheduled. Costco said in a text message to its members that it would suspend business in the afternoon to provide customers with a better shopping experience. Despite the store's location in suburban Shanghai with no close public transportation, consumers from neighboring cities flooded in. Police were deployed to manage traffic jams and restore order around the store. Photos shared online showed shoppers clamoring to get in, fighting over roasted chickens and other meat, and waiting in long lines to check out. Costco's annual membership program is cheaper in China than the U.S. It costs about $42 there compared to $60 in the States. Unlike other supermarkets that mainly sell fresh food and daily necessities, Costco also offers products like luxury handbags. NTD News.
Trained as a lawyer, Vladimir Zelensky went on to become a screenwriter, actor, and director of the popular Ukrainian TV program Quarter 95. 3 months ago, he became Ukraine's president. NTD's Anna Varava has more on how the former comedian is doing as president.
100 days have passed since Vladimir Zelensky became the president. During this time, he managed to dissolve parliament, his party won parliamentary elections, and he tried to negotiate with Russia.
Experts say Zelensky's victory in the parliamentary elections is our biggest recent news. He received almost 60% of the vote in parliament, and now the way is open for rapid changes in various fields.
A poll of 51 Ukrainian experts gave the president's foreign policy efforts high marks. He's established contacts with EU and Canadian leaders and is expected to meet soon with President Trump. Zelensky's initiatives to bring peace to the Donbas region were also noted. Armed conflict in Donbas has claimed the lives of 13,000 since the Ukrainian government and pro-Russian separatists started fighting in 2014. The experts praise Zelensky's offer to negotiate with Russia's Vladimir Putin in Minsk and his efforts to return to the multilateral negotiations called the Normandy format. However, the experts were less keen on the president's appointments for staff to government posts and his Servants of the People party. They charged Zelensky appointed people based on loyalty rather than qualifications. And researchers also believe that the president has not done enough to prevent Russia from returning to the plenary assembly of the Council of Europe, better known as PACE. After Zelensky dissolved the old parliament, his party won a majority. The new parliament will be up and running on Thursday.
This government will need to make quick and sometimes not very popular reforms.
On presidential elections 3 months ago, Vladimir Zelensky got unprecedented amount of support. More than 73% of Ukrainians voted for him, and now he still has huge amount of trust.
Data from a study by the Democratic Initiatives Foundation back that up.
The newly elected president has the trust of 70% of citizens. No one president in the history of Ukraine had such trust.
Basically, the changes are positive. The fight against corruption is immediately noticeable. I think the new parliament will be more effective. The good news is that he travels around Ukraine and is interested in how things are in different cities.
So far, little change. The same people in power, the police use the same methods. Cases are solved, people are not arrested.
According to the study, 70% of people believe that reforms in Ukraine will be successful. Reporting by Anna Varava, NTD News, Ukraine.
On a mountain in the northeastern part of Colombia, there is a village where everyone practices Kung Fu, no matter how old they are. NTD reporter Sherwin Rong spoke with one of the villagers who won a silver medal during NTD's 2019 International Chinese Martial Arts Competition.
Living on a mountain in an ancient-style temple, Laura Franco Gomez has been exposed to Kung Fu since she was in her mother's womb. My dad has always done martial arts, and my mom too, so I came to this life with that gene. Laura has always been in love with martial arts. She started practicing it when she was 3. However, she didn't find what she was really looking for until she started practicing a traditional Chinese martial art. I have always leaned towards spirituality, and the traditional Chinese martial arts have a level of spirituality, of inner power, and a lot of energy. Since then, she has followed the school of martial arts called Senshi Praying Mantis for about 8 years, learning the 7-star continuous straight sword style. She said in traditional martial arts, it isn't only about the movement, but about managing energy through the movements.
For example, when you
push with the weapons only like this, there's a power from inside, from the energy center.
From inside, from Tentian. I like that.
To Laura, traditional martial arts is the path to spirituality because it has opened the door for her to find what is beyond the physical. Reporting by NTD News, Shuan Rong.
The 76th Venice Film Festival got underway on Wednesday night local time with a star-studded red carpet showcasing some of the finest talent that cinema has to offer.
French actresses Catherine Deneuve and Juliette Binoche, stars of Japanese director Hirokazu Koreida's The Truth, mingled with other glamorous guests. Making her cinematic debut, the film's youngest cast member, Clementine Grenier, was also present. Other stars present on the carpet included models Sophia Richie and Candice Swanepoel. Meanwhile, excited fans getting autographs and selfies with the stars. The opening filming competition, The Truth, kicked off the 11-day festival, which runs from August 28th to September 7th.
As summer draws to a close, nearly 24 dogs and their owners took to the beach in Croatia to compete in a canine race.
Held at one of Croatia's few dog-friendly beaches, the race includes a short swimming and running course. This year's race was won by returning champion and 2017 winner Nimbus, a large athletic 7-year-old mutt. For those dogs not as into physical exertion, there were also events for the fastest ice cream eating and canine wine drinking.
We've also had many more competing for the fastest ice cream eater. And overall, we're very, very happy with how the dogs are handling all the competition.
The winner of the competitions finished their treats within minutes. Owners of the fastest dogs got to go home with more treats.
Today's NTD News. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Stephanie Cox.